Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Now, let's get to the newspapers this morning and share with you what the big stories are making headlines across Nigeria. We kick off with the Punch newspapers this morning. It's going to be on your screen in a second. Yes, it is. It says states spend 1.7 trillion naira on trips, meals, and others. Borrow 988 billion naira. That's very interesting because, let's ignore the amount that is being spent on trips and meals and other things. No, we're not going to ignore it, but let's focus on both of them because none of these trips, from what we are seeing in the States today, and I don't know what the standard of development is that everyone, has in their minds, but, I personally want to see a level of development, and that's why I had, a long conversation yesterday with Dennis Society, because I need to understand what is the standard of development that we place on people who call themselves leaders. And who are in office for 8 years. What's the standard? Is it, a handful of roads that have been fixed? Are those the things that we look at and say, okay, yes, person has done well? Is it the renovation of churches or the renovation of court, houses? What exactly would we say is the standard that we place on these people who lead us? So if they spend 1.7 trillion naira on trips, how beneficial have these trips been to the people that they govern and the people that, voted them into office? And how do we not care that these trips do not matter? Because they've brought absolutely nothing. They've not brought investments. They've not brought, better ideas. They've not brought, reduced maternal mortality. They've not brought improved, security infrastructure. They've not brought better education. They've not reduced the number of out-of-school children. They've not reduced the level of unemployment in Nigeria. So what are these trips for? And of course, borrowing 988 billion naira. For what exactly? In what ways have those things again been beneficial to the people that put you in office? And we're not talking just to the state governors. We're talking to everybody. The State House of Assembly. We're talking to the local government chairman. In every single level of government, in what ways have these things been beneficial to the people that you govern? It says states borrow 988.4 billion naira from banks and others in 9 months. Governors get over 87 billion naira for security votes. Ondo denies 7.3 billion naira diversion. Yes, the governor of the state, Rotimi Akeredolu, was called out also. Federal government revokes 1,633 mining licenses, vows to sanitize sector. Nigeria, Germany signed $500 million renewable energy and gas deals. Insecurity military blames Forex, demands special courts for terrorists. Okay. Ghetto in paradise, Abuja pupils learn in sheds, and Dior dumps order, and also $35 billion needed to execute concrete road projects, says the Minister of Works, David Umahi. Vandal to die by hanging, accomplice back 16 years. Sanwo-Olu denies fraud, assembly orders probe. It's a thing that we're going to be looking at, in just a few minutes with Funsho Doherty, who'll be joining us to analyze the details, from the procurement processes that he, exposed 2 days ago, and the response from the, Lagos state government. But of course, $35 billion needed to execute concrete road projects, says David Umahi. Okay, fair and good, but I don't know that, we need to, anyway, we probably need to have an x-ray of the, developmental plans of the current administration with regards roads. What are their plans? And, how many kilometers of roads do we need to fix? Do we do have a source for where we're going to get this $35 billion? Are we going to go borrow another $35 billion and add to what we currently have? As our debt profile as a nation, currently about 87 or 88 trillion naira. So, maybe these details will help us understand better. Nigeria and Germany signed $500 million renewable energy and gas deals. We've been signing similar deals. I think we had one with Siemens, I believe, with the former administration, before the chief of staff to the president back then, Abba Kyari, passed on. I remember that there was a Siemens deal that was signed that didn't eventually kick off, or still hasn't kicked off till now. So I'm not sure which $500 million renewable energy gas deal that we're referring to here. Federal government revoking 1,633 mining licenses sounds like a good idea because the idea of sanitizing the gas sector, the mining sector, 100%, a lot of people I'm sure would agree with that. It must be sanitized. It must be, at least, Nigeria's maybe second, maybe third, maybe fourth, but at least in our top 5 highest earning sectors in Nigeria. We need to be able to make billions and billions of dollars from the mining industry every year. As much as we talk about diversifying our economy, that's one of the places that Nigeria should look at. So yes, we should sanitize it, and I don't think anybody would have any issues with that one. I think those are the stories that we can share on the Punch newspapers this morning. Let's see what we can find on the Daily Trust.
All right, let's look at the Daily Trust newspaper. On the front page, confusion over contradictions in the certified true copy of appeal court judgment sacking Kano governor. Okay, it's typographical error, Gowuna's counsel, APC chieftain says. There seems to be a lot of typographical errors these days in reports. Only Supreme Court will interpret it, says Governor Yusuf's lawyer. Kano stands still for Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf on arrival from Abuja. It's not a lot of stories on the Daily Trust. Reps indict NPA, NNPC, NBET, others over 14 trillion naira contingent liabilities. Osun governor spends 2 billion naira on meals, welfare, runs office with 6 billion naira in 3 months. So what Funsho Doherty's open letter and expose has done is it started to make other people in other states take a look at their governments and their budgets to see where there might have been, things swallowing, where there have been snakes swallowing currencies in their budgets. Nigerians already knew before now that a number of these budgets have not been accurate. They've been padded to reflect numbers that don't reflect the reality of what is being spent, numbers that don't reflect the current reality of Nigerians, and just absurd figures. So what this has done is there's going to be, I'm very certain that in the coming weeks, we're going to see a number of governors and governments being called out for their their loud, lavish, nonchalant spending. Nonchalant because it's not taking into consideration the state of the affairs in the country. Because how do you explain 2 billion naira on meals, welfare, and running office with 6 billion naira in 3 months? What are they running the office with? That is amounting to 6 billion. It's not million.
In 3 months.
In 3 months.
Yeah.
It's wild. Uproar in Senate over minority leadership seats. We did play the video at the start of the show about Senator Onwoye and how he had complained, Tony Onwoye complaining about how the leadership style of Senator Godswill Akpabio. Now, this will not be the first time that we've heard complaints about the leadership style of Senator Godswill Akpabio. In fact, when we did have Senator Elisha Abo whilst he was still in the House, we had him on the show. And that was one thing he did mention. He complained about how a number of the senators were not pleased with his leadership style. But this is still a developing story. We will bring more updates as we receive them. Let's move away from the Daily Trust and share what's on the Vanguard.
Yeah, but just to also quickly chip in, with the Osun State story there, spending 2 billion on meals and welfare, and of course running the office for 6 billion in 3 months. These are likely the way that things have been run, since, and then a new government comes in and doesn't see the need to make these changes. And I want to mention that, it's also important to mention that every time that, yes, we understand that the bulk that stops on the, governor's table, he is the one in charge and he's the one who should be held responsible, when these things happen. But we also need to remember that in these little details, we can tell that the corruption in Nigeria is not just going to be blamed on one person. We will ensure that I want us to realize that there's people in the State House of Assembly that see these things fly past and turn the other way. There's people in the Auditor General's office at the state level that see these things fly and turn the other way. There are people who, of course, are in the procurement office at the state level that see these things happen and turn the other way. There are people that see that there's so much of these funds that are being diverted that turn the other way. So yes, we will blame the governor, but there's an attitude amongst Nigerians, amongst MDAs here in Nigeria that must also be fixed if we are sincere about making the changes that we want to make. If a state is spending 6 billion naira on certain things, that we can all tell, it's extravagant spending, then the question needs to be asked not just at the governor, but every single person who's involved in the approvals for those funds and people who benefit from those things also. All right. Away from the Daily Trust this morning, let's go to the Vanguard newspapers this morning. And just quickly throw in, it says, why insecurity is not going away, say service chiefs. And also Nigeria's rig count drops 13% as oil output rises to 1.4 million barrels per day. And just to quickly throw in one more before we go. Rivers crisis, 2 factional assembly lawmakers hold separate meetings as governor FCT officials gave me fake CFO, says Wike. Okay, all right. These are the stories that we can share this morning on the Vanguard newspapers. In the interest of time, we need to, move on to other things. So let's take a short break. When we come back, it's back to our top stories this morning.